In this video, I will share with you my thoughts on tanking, mythic dungeons and other World of Warcraft content, as well as my recommendation of what choice of a tanking class you should make as a casual who doesn't know any better. Let's do this. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, Gyro here. As I said, today we're talking about tanking. Tanking certainly assumes certain level of responsibility, and people generally steer clear of tanking roles unless they just like tanking, unless they have tanked before, unless they like a challenge, or for some other personal reasons. Tanking is certainly the most appreciated role, and I'm not trying to downplay the role of a very good DPS in a group or the role of a reliable healer. We all love our healers. This is certainly not to put you guys down. But facts are the facts. Take a look at just a quick snapshot of Mythic Plus group kind of queues, available groups. Take a look at what they're looking for. I don't even think I have to defend this point or explain myself too much. DPS are a dime a dozen. They are expected to overgear content that they're queuing up for by a large margin sometimes, like 450s are expected to be queuing up for content that gives you only 430, 435 gear, which is kind of pathetic, but that's how it's always been in World of Warcraft. I've already recommended to you in one of my previous guides that you should explore an opportunity of queuing up as a healer for at the very least lower mythic keys where the stress levels are manageable and where you don't need to be particularly a dedicated career healer, so to speak. So you're using a healer spec to help yourselves gear for whatever you enjoy more. Say you do need DPS gear and you want to run horrific visions afterwards, having better chances of obviously of succeeding with higher levels of gear. Otherwise, why bother obtaining that better gear? So today we are looking at the tanking role, and again I'm just sharing my thoughts. This is not a guide, this is not specifically about paladins or whatever, even though paladin is heavily featured here as someone I'm running my alt that I'm running this mythic Siege of Baralas on. And I just want to put it very simply to you guys. If you have the guts, if you have been in these dungeons many times as a healer, I do recommend that you consider tanking role if you know the dungeon well and if you know the path well. You are supposed to lead. This is the main pressure. However, if you have not tanked and all you have is anxiety of tanking, if you don't know how it feels, I can also share some good news with you guys. The good news is that when you know when to go, and when you mark yourself with a visual marker, and when upon entry into the dungeon you greet people, you could tell them even that you're a bit rusty, that you're just coming out of retirement or whatever, so that they understand that it's not going to be a crazy push, especially in Mythics, especially in Mythic Plus. But if you've done those preemptive measures, especially if it was your group, if you started the group in the Mythic queue and you were accepting people of reasonable item level who are not going to have to be carried purely by you, I think that your life as a tank in that run could be a lot less stressful than you think. Even if there are some tough situations, Mythic Plus, they are, especially Mythic Plus rather than Mythic Plus Zero, Mythic Normal, these dungeons are made to be stressful, and in this run, I don't know if we'll have enough time in this rant. I have not particularly timed this speech. It's an unscripted video, another one for you guys. I don't know if we'll get to the end boss, if this will stretch long enough to show you how we handled the end boss. But on the end boss, we actually wiped one or two times because people, for some reason, were not shooting the cannons. And that's okay. No one was toxic about it. We just reloaded and we just came in and we finished off the run. That was no problem. But because I was a tank, and that is what I'm trying to convey to you, and that's what I'm trying to sell to you, I suppose, as an idea. If you are a tank, everything is in your control. The speed of movement is in your control. How much or how little you pull, which groups you pull, where do you charge, where do you slow down a bit, where do you wait for heals, where do you issue a command to people, wait here, go there. It is in your control. And that control, to be honest with you, is a wonderful thing that compensates at least partially for that extra added responsibility and possibly an anxiety that comes with it. Yes, your people could not watch their corners and they could pull that group that was completely unnecessary. But this is a Mythic Plus Zero. It's not the end of the world. This character is in mid 440s eye level gear. So item level gear that drops from this place was of no interest to me. I was doing it for fun. I was doing it for fun and to get my Mythic Plus key, which I, by the way, did not then utilize queuing for more Mythic Plus on this Paladin. I just really just had fun a bit. So this is certainly not a stressful range of difficulty, I guess. But now coming to the selection of the tank, as I said, this is not a guide and this is not a thorough review of different tanks. We have other places, other channels on YouTube that dedicate themselves and are authority as far as it comes to tanking, and all people want to know what's the highest ranked tank these days. Who cares? Who cares what's the highest ranked tank these days? Who cares? You are not going to be pushing that content, the really top end content where that minute difference matters. You need at this stage, at any of these, Mythic Plus Zero, LFR, Mythic Plus 4, all of this attainable range for you as a casual who is going to be tanking that stuff. At this range, all that matters is your own enjoyment of the class and how easy, objectively, how easy it is to play the class within this role, especially if it's a newish role to you, like a tank. With that being said, what I am proposing to you guys without reviewing it in depth, you just have to take my word for it. It's subjective, happy to discuss with you in the comments down below, but I can very, very strongly suggest to you to try Protection Paladin. Protection Paladin, in my opinion, is the easiest, most all-rounded, most easy to play and keep alive tank that there is in World of Warcraft right now. Again, I'm showing to you my gear a little bit here, showcasing it quickly. I showed it to you before with my talents. In case you were interested, I'm sure you noticed that. Protection Paladin has a wonderful tool set. Avenger's Shield is what is currently mapped to my button 5, is bounces between the targets, comes back up through the talents that reset it from abilities, comes back up very quickly, silences mobs, wonderful for pulls, does a reasonable amount of damage by itself, plus it just feels and looks cool, makes you feel cool. Consecration, very easy AoE damage and something that synergizes very nicely with your passives as a paladin. The passives of the paladin are basically increasing your capabilities as a tank as long as you stand inside of consecration. Drop a consecration, throw a shield, make sure you're using Shield of the Righteous, the one that's mapped to number 2, button number 2 for me, and use Hammer of the Righteous on the cooldown, not forgetting to judge periodically with what is mapped to number 3 for me. That's it. In a nutshell, there are other things. Obviously, there is mobility, there is Cavalier, talent that allows you to summon that mount and charge forward. There is a self-heal. There are additional defensive cooldowns, a metric ton of them as well. I'm not even talking about the famous bubble of the Paladin. I'm talking about Lay on Hands. I'm talking about Blessing of Freedom. I'm talking about Gift of the Naru if you're playing Draenei like I do, because I like extra self-heals and all that kind of stuff. Paladin is wonderful, easy to play, much easier to heal than anything else, has a block mechanic by itself is something that makes Protection Paladin somewhat similar in this aspect of melee damage, incoming melee damage, to Protection Warrior. And Protection Warriors are like a job. Like Protection Warriors, I like Protection Warriors, but Protection Warriors are for hardcore people who are, raiding Mythic raids and pushing with groups, with dedicated groups of people, Mythic plus 20. Protection Warriors are a job. It's serious business. It's a serious tool with a serious heal attached to it. Paladin is a lot more forgiving. Paladin is self-sustaining, yet having a lot of good things that Warrior has, like block, like shield block, yeah? It's only one of the two classes that has a shield. I'm not talking about the Shaman. I'm not talking about the Shaman here. Anyway, so this is an example of where I actually did get, I think, a better corruption element, and I did have some pieces of gear in my 447, some pieces of gear still 430. So in this particular case, I was able to use this, and I think squeeze out a tiny bit more damage out of that mind flay effect, but that's beside the point. Anyway, so this long rant, I hope you enjoyed it and understood what I was trying to connect with you today on. I do, like, again, to summarize, first message for you is consider tanking roles. It is not as bad as you think, as long as you try to remain in control. Make it your group, or be very clear with your group that you are not after pushing. You are after chilling, as it's called, in the language of people queuing for mythics. Best thing again is to just make sure that the invitation is on your terms. Start a group yourself. Mark yourself, run ahead, not too far, make sure your healer is with you, make sure they're keeping up. Do not start pulling large groups straight away until you have figured out how good is the DPS, and for that you definitely need to see the recount to the damage meter add-on in the bottom left corner there next to the chat window, because for tank it's very important to see how the DPS is performing before you start pulling more. These are examples of behavior that differentiate a good tank from a bad tank. And the choice of the class. Do not chase some glory and some stats that are posted by the top end mythic guilds. What tank currently rates 5% above others? It doesn't matter at this stage. If, like, I don't know, I'll give you an example of, say, Brewmaster. Brewmaster is a ridiculously complex tank compared to Paladin. Everything is comparable, of course, right? You could argue with me because you love Brewmasters. I don't mind them either. But at the same time, in all honesty, when I tank on Brewmaster and then I run on my Paladin, Protection Paladin, it feels like I took off tight business shoes, fresh, expensive business shoes. I took them off and put on my lovely, beloved home slippers. That's how it feels. It feels really comfortable and easy. And that's what I kind of want to promote and suggest to you guys, for maybe something you didn't consider, but perhaps something that you would consider. Final word before we wrap up. How are protection paladins in other content? Well, for me, the relevant content remains horrific visions, and you've seen my videos of a protection paladin running horrific visions. And protection paladin at this item level is not dishing out crazy amount of single target damage. Protection paladin is holding their own with the smaller mobs in larger pools. They do, and survivability is absolutely unmatched. Absolutely unmatched. Even guardian druids probably do not stand a chance against protection paladins at this item level, casual kind of level, casual play. But overall, I'd say protection paladins would still win. But because it's a paladin, paladin can damage, paladin can heal, and paladin can tank. It is also a worthy choice of this class, is also a worthy time investment for you as a casual alt or holic potential looking for an alt, to make sure that it's not just a one-trick pony. If you choose a warrior, you may be a good tank and maybe a reasonable DPS, but you cannot heal, right? This class can do virtually everything if one day you do decide to change and don't feel like rolling another alt. For me, rolling another alt is never an issue because I enjoy it. But for you, it might be. So part of the choice of this class for tanking purposes in this case is also good because it's reusable. It's reusable for other kind of stuff. Anyway, I hope that you found it somewhat, maybe you needed someone to talk to you about this, perhaps like this as a friend, and share their opinion with you on how well the class is performing in specific content, and maybe encourage you. Sometimes all we need is a little nudge, is a little encouragement and a little bit of a friendly kind of words of support before we start trying some content. But World of Warcraft is reasonably stale at this stage. We're all ready for Shadowlands. Alpha is here. We are on top of the news from Alpha, but now it's a bit of a now even Alpha is a bit of old news. Alpha also is just there is another build. There are a couple of new abilities. They added warriors to Torghast. Okay, well I didn't feel like reviewing warriors anima powers, for example, for Torghast. That is not news enough for me. So I am sharing with you what I am doing. I'm alternating content. I am playing I am rolling new alts, I am playing Horrific Visions obviously, but I am also trying to tank here and there. And I do think that Paladin, Protection Paladin, is very much worth your while, worth your interest, if you're looking for something new to do, but are feeling perhaps a little bit tentative on tanking as a role. Anyway, this is where I'm going to wrap up. I hope you enjoyed this little rant. Subscribe if you haven't already. I really appreciate your support. Horrific Visions are coming your way. Reviews of what's happening in alpha are coming whenever there is a more chunky event or chunky kind of amount of information coming our way. We will be reviewing those. And a lot more stuff on different alts, these semi-guide kind of elements. I enjoy talking to you like this, and sounds like you enjoy it too, judging by your occasional comments and the views. So that's what I'm going to continue doing. Appreciate your support once again, and we'll talk to you next time.